Today, I'm going to show you how to use a simple blend if feature inside of Adobe After Effects to extract amazing details within our sky and create a powerful color grading effect. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, what exactly is blend if? Blend if is where you blend one layer inside of Adobe Photoshop onto another layer based on the contents of either two layers. For example, here inside of Adobe Photoshop, I have a still image of the footage that we're going to be working with inside of After Effects. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is click on the layer adjustments icon and choose solid color. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose a bright orangish color that's very similar to the bright colors in our sky, and then hit OK. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and click on the effects icon and choose blending options. Once the layer style properties comes up, I'm going to go ahead and click on our black slider and drag it to the right until we start to see that it blends in with the bright portions of our sky. And now we want to go ahead and soften this out. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is hold down the Alt key, click on our black slider, and that's going to split it into two sliders. I'm going to take the one on the left and drag it to the left until it's nice and smooth. Once that is done, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Then I'm going to come over to the blending options and choose Overlay. So that's an example of how we use blend if inside of Photoshop. However, this feature is not listed inside of Adobe After Effects, but there is a way to replicate this feature, and that's what I'm going to show you. So here we are inside of Adobe After Effects. I'm going to go ahead and take our footage and drag it into a new composition. Once our composition is set up, I'm going to go to Layer, New, and then Solid. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose that same bright orange color like we did inside of Photoshop. Hit OK. Now to replicate the blend if feature like you saw in Photoshop, I'm going to go to Effect, Keying, and choose Extract. However, when we choose this effect on top of our solid color layer, you'll notice that there's hardly any information at all inside of our histogram. And that's because there are no pixels that represents shadows and highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this effect. And I'm going to duplicate our footage by pressing Ctrl and then D, which will duplicate it. And then I'm going to take our duplicated footage and drag it to the top. Then I will go ahead and apply that same extract effect onto our duplicated footage. Now, as you can see, there is more information that shows up inside of our histogram. So I'm going to go ahead and take our white point and I'm going to go ahead and drag it to the left until it starts to blend in nicely. And then I'm going to go ahead and soften it out by clicking on the white softness and dragging it to the right. And I'm just going to play with these 2 points here just until it blends in nicely with the sky. Now once that's finished, I'm going to go ahead and go to the blending options and choose Overlay. Sorry, we don't want to do that with our footage. We want to do that with our solid color. I'm going to click on our solid layer icon, go to the blending options, and choose Overlay. So that's how we replicate the blend if feature inside of Adobe After Effects. Now I want to go ahead and do the same thing, only this time I want it to affect our shadows within the sky. So to do this, I'm going to click on all 3 of our layers by holding down Control and then clicking on all 3 layers. And then I'm going to duplicate them by pressing Control and then D, which will duplicate them. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag them to the top. And now I want to pre-compose these layers and merge them into one. So I'm going to choose Layer and then Pre-compose. And I'll name this Brighter Sky Colors. Now once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and create a new solid layer. And this time, I'm going to go ahead and choose a dark purple bluish color, which is very similar to the shadows inside of our sky. And then hit OK. Next, I want to duplicate our pre-composed footage. So I'm going to click on our pre-composed layer and choose Control and then D. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag that to the top. And then I'm going to Effect, and then extract. This time I'm going to take the black point and drag it to the right until we start to see that our sky blends in with our solid color layer. And I'm going to do the same with the black softness to soften it out. So as you can see, that's starting to look really good. However, you'll notice that our ground has also blended in with our blue solid color layer, but that can be easily fixed. All we have to do is mask that out, and there is a simple way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate our pre-composed footage by pressing Ctrl and then D. I'm actually going to duplicate it twice. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete the extract effect on our top two layers. And next, I want to go ahead and isolate the ground from the sky. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on our top layer, and then I'm going to go to Effect, Color Correction, and choose Colorama. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on the drop-down menu for the output cycle, and for the preset palette, I'm going to choose Ramp Gray. And you'll notice that this converts our video into a black and white footage. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the black slider, and I'm going to drag it clockwise. However, I'm not going to drag it too far away from the white slider. And so I'm going to go ahead and add another black slider by clicking anywhere on the color wheel, and I'm going to choose a black color. Now as you can see, our dark portions are starting to become really crushed black. So I'm going to go ahead and take our slider and drag it clockwise until our ground is completely black. Might also go ahead and fiddle with this black slider as well. And now we want to go ahead and make our sky completely white. So I'm going to click anywhere between our white slider and our new black slider, and then choose white. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag it counterclockwise until our sky is completely white. Now once we have went ahead and isolated the ground from the sky, I'm going to take our second layer, which is our second pre-composed footage layer, and for the track matte, I'm going to go ahead and choose Luma Inverted Matte. And there we have it. However, if you zoom in, you'll notice that we've got some fringes on the sand dunes, and that can easily be eliminated as well. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take our two top layers, and then I'm going to pre-compose them by choosing Layer and then Pre-compose. We'll name this Sky Mask. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to Effect, Matte, and then choose Matte Choker. And I'm going to take the first choke value and I'm going to drag it all the way to the left, decreasing the value just until we start to see that those fringes have been eliminated on the sand dunes. That's starting to look pretty good there. Now I want to go ahead and add some final color grading touches to our footage. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is create a layer, new, adjustment layer. And I'm going to choose Effect, Color Correction, and then Curves. So to start this off, I'm going to go ahead and take our shadows and add some contrast to them by clicking and dragging down just a bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some contrast to our highlights. And this time I'm going to click on our highlights and drag up just a bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the midtones as well. Now once this is done, I want to go ahead and apply a photo filter. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Effect, Color Correction, and then Photo Filter. For the filter preset, I'm going to go ahead and choose Deep Yellow. and I'll increase the density to about maybe 40%. And that kind of adds like, a nice warm sunset color to our footage. Now it's kind of a bit too harsh right here, so I'm going to push T on the keyboard to bring up the opacity, and I'm going to decrease this to about 80%. Now I want to go ahead and apply a gradient map to our footage, and to do that I'm going to click on Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and then I'm going to choose Effect, Color Correction, and then Tint. And so by default it's set to black and white. So for the black, I'm going to go ahead and choose like a dark bluish purplish color, which is like the shadows in our sky. Hit OK. And for the whites, I'm going to go ahead and choose that bright orangish color. And then I'm going to go over to the blending options and I'm going to choose soft light. Now this is a bit too much, so I'm going to go ahead and bring down the opacity by pressing T on the keyboard, then decrease the opacity. And I'll probably drag that down to about maybe 30%. Looks about good. Now as you can see, the colors and the saturation are a little bit too harsh. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is create another adjustment layer. And I'm going to choose Effect and then Tint. And I'm going to leave the colors as they are, black and white. And I'm going to go ahead and decrease the amount to probably about, say, 10 to 15%. And that looks a bit nicer. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a vignette, and that's the last thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Layer, New, Solid, and I'm going to go ahead and choose a black color. Next I'm going to go ahead and hold down the left mouse button, click on our masking tool, and I'm going to choose Ellipse tool. Then I'm going to go ahead and double click on our ellipse tool, and that's going to create a mask. Now I'm going to go over to the mask properties and I'm going to go ahead and choose Subtract. Then I'll bring down the mask properties by clicking down on the drop down arrow, and then I'll increase the expansion to about maybe 100 pixels. And then I'll increase the feather amount to 100 pixels as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and decrease the opacity a bit by pressing T on the keyboard, and decrease the opacity to probably about maybe 40%. And so there we have it. It's looking nice and beautiful. Here's the before, and here's the after. So that's how you replicate the Blend If feature inside of Adobe After Effects to extract amazing details within our sky and create a nice, colorful color grading effect. Thank you everybody for watching. Please be sure to subscribe for more videos.